Here we'll answer the practice questions for the part 2 of your long-term financing. We will begin with stock valuation. The first question here is which of the following statements is most correct? So that means we will have to go over the choices. Letter A, the company has two classes of common stock, Class A and Class B. The stocks may pay different dividends, but the two classes must have the same voting rights. This is incorrect class. Different classes of common stock may have different voting rights. Letter B, an IPO. What is an IPO? Initial public offering. Occurs whenever a company buys back its stock of the open market. This is incorrect. What happens in an IPO? It is for the first time the company makes its shares available to the public. Hence the name initial public offering. Letter C, the preemptive right is a provision in the corporate charter that gives common stockholders the right to purchase new issues of common stock on a pro rata basis. This is our preemptive right. What's the purpose of your preemptive right? So that your existing shareholders will not be diluted in their ownership stake. So if the company will issue new shares, we are given the right to acquire a portion of those new offering in order for them to maintain their percentage ownership. So that means the answer in number one would be letter C. Still on preemptive right, the preemptive right is important to shareholders because it, letter B, protects the current shareholders against dilution of ownership interest. Number three, companies can issue different classes of common stock. Which of the following statements concerning stock classes is most correct? We need to go over all the choices. Letter A, all common stocks fall into one of three classes, A, B, and C. No. Letter B, most firms have several classes of common stock outstanding. Not necessarily. Normally, they will only have one. Letter C, all common stock, regardless of class, must have voting rights. That's also not necessarily true. All common stock, regardless of class, must have the same dividend privileges. Definitely not. So the best answer here would be letter E. None of the statements above is necessarily true. Number four, on preferred stocks. Which of the following statements is most correct? Again, you need to go over all the choices. Preferred stockholders have priority over common stockholders. This can be true, hence the name preferred. Letter B, a big advantage of preferred stock is that preferred stock dividends are tax deductible for the issuing corporation, not necessarily, since it is from an equity instrument. Letter C, most preferred stock is owned by corporations. This is something you need to absorb that this is a true statement. So the answer number four will be letter E. Number five, which of the following statements is most correct? Letter A, one of the advantages to the firm associated with preferred stock financing rather than common stock financing is the control of the firm is not diluted. Yes, that is correct. Uh, your common shareholdings will not be diluted by the existence of preferred shares. Letter B, preferred stock provides steadier and more reliable income to investors than common stock. Letter B is true because normally if it's a preferred stock, you will have a fixed amount of dividend. And sometimes even if the company will not declare dividends for the year, by the time you declare dividends in the future, then you will still be getting back the preferred dividends in the past years. So with that, the answer for number five would be letter E again. Number 6, which of the following statements is most correct? One of the advantages of common stock financing is that a greater proportion of stock in the capital structure can reduce the risk of a takeover. One, no, the greater proportion class, the higher the risk of a takeover. Letter B, firm with uh, classified stock and pay different dividends to each class of shares. Again, you mentioned that that is true. Letter C, one of the advantages of common stock financing is that a firm's debt ratio will decrease. What is debt ratio? Debt over total assets. And remember that assets is equal to liabilities plus equity. So if you issue additional shares, what will happen? Your equity will increase. And if equity will increase, following the accounting equation, total assets will also increase, thereby increasing your divisor. So if there's no change in your liabilities, divided by an increased amount of assets, that means your debt ratio will decrease. So that means letter B and letter C are true. So the answer in number 6 would be delta. Number 7, stock X has a required uh, return of 10%, while stock Y has a required return of 12%. Which of the following statements is most correct? Stock Y must have a higher dividend yield than stock X. Because what is dividend yield? Going back to our discussion on bonds, the equivalent for your dividend yield will be your current yield. And how did we get current yield before? It is simply your interest divided by the principal. Okay, this time dividend yield again is just the equivalent. But you have to understand, what do we get out of a stock? Do we get interest from the stock? No, but instead of interest, what is the fruit that will be given by the stock? It will be your dividend. So to get your dividend yield, it will simply be the amount of dividend received divided by the cost or the price of the stock. Okay? And in this question class, we cannot determine which of the two has a higher dividend yield because we are not given any information as to its dividend, as to the dividend that will be given by the stock. Then you would ask, sir, how about the 10% and the 12%? The 10% and the 12% has nothing to do with the stock. It is from the perspective of the investor. What do I mean? That for stock X, the investor will require a return of 10%. It does not mean that the bond will necessarily give, sorry, the stock will necessarily give a dividend of 10%. Okay, the same for stock Y. The holder of stock Y will require a return of 12%. But again, that does not necessarily mean that the dividend that will be given by the stock is 12% of its price. So we cannot conclusively say that letter A is true. Letter B, if stock Y and stock X have the same dividend yield, then stock Y must have lower capital gains yield. If you remember in our discussion in bonds, your total yield or the total return from a bond can be broken down into the current yield and CGY, CY and CGY, current yield and capital gains yield. The same for your stocks. Your total yield from your stocks can also be broken down into, but instead of current yield, again, we mentioned that the equivalent of current yield is your dividend yield. So the total yield from your stock can be broken down into your dividend yield and also your capital gains yield. Okay? And what does letter B tell us? That stock Y must have a lower expected capital gains yield. How much is the total required rate of return for stock X? 10. And then stock Y, 12. Assuming they have the same dividend yield, let's say 5%. Let's use 6. Let's use 7 so that you will not be confused with the residual. If the total yield on stock X is 10 and our dividend yield is 7, how much then would be the capital gains yield of stock X? That is simply 10 minus 7. That means the capital gains yield would be 3%. And the scenario is telling us that what if they have the same dividend yield? So stock Y has a total return of 12 minus 7. That means under those assumptions, the capital gains yield must be 5%. So which one will have a higher capital gains yield? It would be stock Y. Okay, that means letter B is false. Okay, again, we are working under the assumption that they have the same dividend yield. Okay, if you're wondering where we got 7, again, it's just an assumption. You can use any other rate so long as you use the same for both X and Y. Okay, the takeaway here is that the total yield, which may be represented by the required rate of return, is equal to your dividend yield plus your capital gains yield. Letter C, if stock X and Y have the same current dividend and the same expected dividend growth rate, then stock Y must sell for a higher price. What did we say about the required rate of return class? That can be used to get that can be used as a discount rate to get the price of the stock. And what did we say? The higher the rate, the lower the price. So that means which between the two will we expect to have a higher price? It will not be stock Y, but instead it will be stock X. Okay, so that means letter C is also false. So that means the answer for number 7 is letter E. Now I've told you because I've been taking questions out of the handouts. And of course, there will only be 4 choices, so I will have to revise the handout so that the answer will just be one of the 4 choices. So we've had many questions already where the answer is letter E, so let's expect that it will just be adopted verbatim. But do you get the dividend yield and capital gains yield? The total yield from the stock will be composed of your dividend yield, which is the earnings you would get for receiving the dividends. And then the capital gains yield would be the earnings that you get out of the change in the price of the stock, in case you are going to dispose of the investment. And just as an advance discussion, for stocks class, if the problem gives you the growth rate, that is normally the CGY already. Again, what does CGY stand for? Capital gains yield. Whatever is the growth rate, that would already be the capital gains yield. Proceed to number 8, still on theories class, which is false. We're looking for the false statement. Letter A, when a corporation shares are owned by a few individuals who are associated with or are the firm's management, we say that the firm is closely held. That is true. Letter B, publicly owned corporation is simply a company whose shares are held by the investing public, which may include other corporations and institutions as well as individuals. That is also true. Going public establishes a true market value for the firm and ensures that the liquid market will always exist for the firm's share. While going back public class would help establish the value of the firm because the price now of your shares will be driven with the demand for your shares, but it will not ensure that the liquid market will always exist for your shares. So that means the answer here will be letter C, and that means letter B and letter E must be true. Letter D, when stock is closely held corporation, when stock in closely held corporation is offered to the public for the first time, the transaction is called going public, and the market for such stock is called the new issue market. That's correct. It is possible for a firm to go public and yet not raise any additional new capital. That can also be true. Number 9, if markets are in equilibrium, which of the following will occur? Very important theory lang. Which one is supposed to be equal if we say the market is in equilibrium? Is it expected and realized? Is it expected and required? Is it the what's the receipt? Each investment should have the same expected return now. So which one would describe an equilibrium class? If it is the expected and the required. So if an investor requires 10% and he can expect 10% from the investment, then that means the market is in equilibrium. Letter A is wrong, class, because when we say realized return, we are talking about past return. This is the amount that was previously realized by previous holders. Okay, it's always forward-looking. So that means expected and required. Okay, so the answer number 9 is letter B. Number 10, for markets to be in equilibrium, that is, for there to be no strong pressure for prices to depart from their current levels. Which one should be the scenario? The answer for number 10 would be letter A. The expected rate of return must be equal to the required rate of return. 11, an increase in a firm's expected growth rate would normally cause the firm's required rate of return to the answer here will be letter E. Again, if we're talking about required rate of return, it's from the perspective of the investor. So regardless of the expected growth of the company, the return required by the investor is not affected because it's independent from the performance of that company. So the answer number 11 is letter E. Number 12, if the expected rate of return on the stock exceeds the required rate, the expected rate of return on the stock exceeds the required rate, so this is a very attractive investment. You're only requiring 10, but you can expect more than 10. So that means letter B, the stock is a good buy. Number 13, stock A has a required return of 7%. Stock B has a required return of 12%. Its dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 9% per year. Sorry. We're also given with the growth. How much is the growth rate of stock A? 7. For stock B, it's 9%. Stock A has a price of 25 per share. Stock B has a price of 40 per share. Which of the following statements is most correct? How much is the required return or the total yield for stock A? It's 10. And then the growth rate is 7. What did we say about the growth rate, class? The growth rate will stand or represent the capital gains yield. And what did we say about the total yield on a stock? It will be composed of your dividend yield and capital gains yield. So if the total yield is 10%, and then the capital gains yield is 7%, what does that tell us about the dividend yield of stock A? Its dividend yield must be 3%. Does everyone get the 3%? That's just the difference between 10 and 7. Because we know that dividend yield plus CGY will be equal to your total yield, which would be represented by the required rate of return. Let's do the same for stock B. Let's determine the dividend yield for stock B. How much is the total yield for stock B as represented by the required rate of return? It's 12%. And how much is the Capital gains yield, where do we get the capital gains yield? Again, the capital gains yield will simply be its growth rate. And how much is the growth rate? 9%. Total yield is 12%. That would lead us to the conclusion that the dividend yield for stock P must be 3% as well. So that means the two stocks have the same dividend yield. But because we have choice letter B and E, we need to go over choices B and C. Letter B, the stock market were efficient. These two stocks should have the same price. No, because they have different effective interest. So in this case, different required rate of return. If the stock market were efficient, these two stocks should have the same expected return. No, if the market were efficient, the expected return would be equal to the required rate of return. And since the required rate of return are not equal, then you also cannot expect their expected return to be equal. So the answer in number 13 would simply be letter A. No. 14, which of the following statements is most correct? The constant growth model, plus the constant growth model is one of the models used in valuing your stocks. Supposedly, the concept class, as it has always been, if you're trying to get the price of a investment, whether a bond or a stock, then you will just have to get the present value of all the cash flows that it will provide. The problem with uh, the problem with stocks class is that the price of the stock when you resell it may not be constant. So you'll have a problem uh, determining how much cash flows you will get from the stock. Why do we say that the value of the stock will change? Because if the company will grow, class, do you expect the value of its stock to remain the same? No. If the company grows, you expect the value of its stock to also grow. So if you sell it on year one or when you sell it on year 10, the amount of proceeds that you would get from disposing of your investment would be different. But uh, supposedly, when we're talking about stocks, there's no maturity money. So your cash flows should be endless. Plus. The cash flows that you would get from your stocks would be endless, following your going concern principle. Unlike your bonds, it has a fixed maturity, so you will know how many how many interest you receive and for how long. For stocks, there's an assumption that the cash flows would be limitless. And that's why we have the perpetuity formula. You have an amount of cash flow and you're trying to get how much would be the present value of your perpetual cash flow. Can you remember your perpetuity formula, class? We have the stock. It will, let's say, for example, it will give you 10 peso dividend every year until the end of time, following your going concern principle. Okay? So how do you get the present value of an unlimited or an endless cash flow? You use your perpetuity formula. And what's the perpetuity formula? It is simply the cash flow divided by the discount rate or the effective rate of return, or in this case, the required rate of return. You just divide the periodic cash flow with the discount rate. But the problem is, what if the cash flow is not fixed? What if the amount of dividend that you would get is fixed? So here comes your constant growth model. Since the cash flow is not fixed, we will work under the assumption that the increase in the cash flow, the increase in the periodic cash flow will be constant. And in that case, class, we will just have to modify the perpetuity formula. Again, what is the perpetuity formula? Cash flow divided by discount rate. But if ever your cash flow is not fixed, but it is increasing, but the increase is at a constant rate, then your perpetuity formula will be modified as the cash flow as of the first year divided by the discount rate minus the constant growth. We'll have problems later on to demonstrate. Okay, but again, it's very simple. As perpetuity, cash flow divided by discount rate, constantly growing cash flow divided by discount rate minus the growth rate. Number 14, letter A, the constant growth model takes into consideration the capital gains earned on a stock. This is true. Letter B, it is appropriate to use the constant growth model to estimate stock value even if the growth rate never becomes constant. No, that is incorrect. Letter C, two firms with the same dividend and growth rate must also have the same stock price. Again, it is not necessarily true. Because the absolute amounts may be different. So the answer then in number 14 is letter A. Number 15, which of the following statements is most correct? Still on constant growth model. Letter A, the stock valuation model of P0 is equal to D1 over KS minus G can be used for firms which have negative growth rates. So the formula I mentioned in class is basically what is being shown in letter A. P0 is basically the price today. D1 is the dividend at the end of the first year, which is the cash flow I was referring to. Then the KS there is the discount rate I mentioned, and the G there is the growth rate that I mentioned. And it will apply even though the growth rate is negative. So instead of minus G, since the G is negative, it will simply be KS plus G. Okay, but we'll have a problem demonstrating that as well. So letter A is true. If the stock has a required rate of return of 12% and its dividend grows at a constant rate of 5%, this implies that the stock's dividend is 5%. No. If your growth rate is 5% and your required rate of return is 12%, that means your dividend yield must be how much plus? 7, because we know that the required rate of return is the sum of your CGY and your DY. And we know that our CGY is equal to our growth rate. Okay, so if CGY is equal to the growth rate of 5% and the required rate of return is 12%, that means the dividend yield is 7%. So letter B is false. The price of the stock is the present value of all expected future dividends discounted at the dividend growth rate. Again, this is similar to what I have mentioned. The price is just the present value of all the expected future cash flows represented by your dividends. But what makes letter C wrong, class? The expected future cash flows or the dividends are not discounted using the growth rate. Again, it is discounted using the required rate of return minus the growth rate. Okay, so that means the answer number 15 is letter A. Number 16, plus nothing we've discussed so far, that's why it's difficult. But I understand if you're not liking it because it's simply not interesting. So I'd rather us have a shift in your thinking, because instead of thinking that this topic is difficult, it's acceptable for me for you to just think that this is easy, it's just that it is not interesting. Okay, so let's have a shift in our mindset. This finance is not difficult, it's easy so far, it's just that it is not interesting. Number 16, still on the constant growth model. The stock's dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 5% a year. Which of the following statements is most correct? They expect to grow at a constant rate of 5%. The expected return on the stock is 5% a year. Now, the stock's dividend yield is 5%. No, the growth rate represents what? CGY, not dividend yield. So letter B is also false. The stock's price 1 year from now is expected to be 5% higher. That is correct. You expect the price to increase 5% every year if you have a constant growth rate of 5%. So that means the answer number 16 is only letter C. 17. Stocks A and B have the same required rate of return and the same expected year-end dividend. Stock A's dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 10% per year. So that would be our growth, while stock B's growth rate is 5%. Which of the following statements is most correct? The two stocks should sell at the same price. Again, if you're just given the rates class, that will not be necessary. The same required rate of return, the same expected. No, considering that they have the same year-end dividend, meaning they will have the same cash flows, it's possible. But why are we saying that letter A is false? Because they have different growth rate. So when you use the constant growth model class, cash flow divided by discount rate minus the required rate of return minus the growth rate, then assuming they have the same required rate of return, your divisor in our perpetuity formula class will be different because they have different growth rates, which will result to different selling prices. Letter B, stock A has a higher dividend yield, assuming the same required rate of return, but because they have different growth rate, then we do not expect them to have the same dividend yield. But which one do we expect to be higher? Let's say, for example, required rate of return is 20. And then growth is 10. So for stock A, the dividend yield will be 10. For stock B, the same required rate of return of 20 minus the growth rate of 5, we expect stock B's dividend yield to be 15. So between A and B, we expect stock B to have the higher dividend yield. So letter B is also incorrect. Letter C, currently stock B has a higher price. Stock B has a higher price because its dividend yield will be higher. So the higher the discount rate, the lower the price, supposedly. That's what's happening. But over time, stock A will eventually have a higher price. Now, again, stock B should not have the higher price. So letter C is also false. That means the answer here would be letter E. Number 18. Stock X and stock Y sell for the same price in today's market. Stock X has a required return of 12%. Stock Y has a required return of 10%. Stock X dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 6%, while stock Y's dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 4%. Assume the market is in equilibrium. Which of the following statements is most correct? The same price. Which one is a high? How much is the required return of stock X? 12. How much is the growth in stock X? 6. So, what does that tell us about the dividend yield for stock X? The dividend yield for stock X must also be 6%. Moving on to stock Y. Stock Y's required rate of return is 10, and then the growth rate is 4%. So, how much do we expect to be the dividend yield of stock Y class? Also, 6%. That means they have the same dividend yield. So that means letter A is false. Letter B, stock Y has a higher dividend yield than stock X. We have already said that they have the same. So A and B are not true. 1 year from now, stock X's price is expected to be higher than stock Y's. How do we determine the price for the following year? it will increase equal to its growth rate. Since they have the same price today, we both expect their prices to increase next year, but who will have a higher increase? The one that has a higher growth rate. Who has a higher growth rate or capital gains yield? StockX. So who will have a higher price 1 year from now? That would be StockX. So the answer number 18 is Charlie. Number 19, StockX is expected to pay a dividend of 3 at the end of the year. The dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 6. The stock currently trades at a price of 50. Assume that the stock is in equilibrium, that the stock price is equal to intrinsic value, which of our statements is most correct. So we will have to work back, class. Normally, you will be asked to solve for 50, but 50 is already given. Okay? So you will look for the rate, class, that will give you 50 when divided from 3. So 50 is equal to 3 over x as our unknown minus 6. So one way of doing this, class, is by dividing 3 by 50. How much is 3 by 50, class? Is that 6%? And what is 6%? The 6% is the result already of your KS minus G. And that is not what we are looking for. What we have to do then, you will have to add back the growth rate. How much is the growth rate? It's 6%. So that means your required rate of return must be 12%. That means letter A is true. Letter B, the stock's expected price 10 years from now is 89.54. Okay? Multiple ways of confirming this one, class. How much is the price today? 50. And what did we say before? Every year it will increase equal to its growth rate. So meaning 1 year from now, it will increase by 6%. So you multiply 50 by 1.06. How much is that, class? 53? How much is 50 times 1.06? 53 or 50.3? 53. Okay, but why is that not the answer? Because we are asked for 10 years from now. So what are you going to do? Do that 10 times, class. 50 times 1.06 times 1.06 times 1.06. Do that 10 times and you should get 89.54. But is that what I want you to do? In your exam, the CMA exam, you have access to the PV factors. I've sent you the table of factors before. This time, since we are looking for the price in the future, class, we will be using the future value factor. And since we're only talking about the price today, we'll use the single cash flow future value factor. And based on the table I have given you, you look for the 6% for 10 years, and that would be 1.7908. Multiply 1.7908 by 50, class. How much will that give you? 1.7908 times 50. Does it give you 89.54? So that's the expected price 10 years from now. That means letter B is also true. The stock's dividend yield is 6%. We have already computed that earlier. Since the required rate of return is 12 and then growth rate is 6, that means dividend yield must also be 6. So the answer here is letter E. Number 20. Okay, let's do this quickly. Stock X is a required return of 12% and dividend yield of 5%. So that means its growth rate, which is constant, will be 7. Unless stock Y is a required return of 10 and dividend yield of 3, that means its growth rate or CGY would also be 7. Both stocks currently sell for 25. Which of the following statements is most correct? Stock X has a higher dividend per share. No, they have the same price and they have the same dividend yield. How do you get dividend yield? Dividend divided by price. So if they have the same price and the same dividend yield, they should have the same dividend per share. Letter B, stock X has a lower expected growth rate. No, we determined earlier that they have the same growth rate of 7%? Yes. Letter C, 1 year from now, the two stocks are expected to trade at the same price. The two stocks are expected to trade at the same price. Both stocks currently sell for sell for 25 per share. So letter C is true. But the answer here, class, is not just letter C. Answer here is letter E. We made a mistake in letter A because we were not asked for the dividend yield. We're asked for the amount of dividend. Sorry, I got it wrong. We are asked to compare the amount of dividend. So the price of stock X is 25. How much is the dividend yield, class? 5%. So how much is 5% of 25? That 1.25. So the dividend that you would get, sorry, the question letter A is dividend per share. So the dividend per share that you would get from stock X would be 1.25. For stock Y, how much is the price? Also 25. And how much is the dividend yield? 3%. So is it 0.75? So which one is a higher dividend per share? Stock X. So that means A and C are true. So the answer here is letter E. Moral lesson, class. Read the choices correctly. Carefully. 21. Here you're asked to integrate the CAPM already, class. What's the CAPM formula, class? That the required rate of return is equal to the risk-free rate plus the market risk premium. And how do you get the market risk premium? The market rate of return minus your risk-free rate. This is also one of the problems of finance. You're asked to integrate several concepts. Number 21, stock A has a beta of 1.1, while stock B has a beta of 0.9. The market risk premium. Always be careful kasi if what is given is the market rate or already the premium. Because if it's already the premium, class, no need to deduct the risk-free rate. The risk-free rate is 6.3%. Both stocks have a dividend, which is expected to grow at a constant rate of 7%. Assume that the market is in equilibrium. Which of the following statements is most correct? So, can we compute for the required rate of return for both? Why do we need to solve for our required rate of return? Because we know that the required rate of return can be broken down into your dividend yield and your growth. So if we have our required rate of return, we'll be able to determine our dividend yield since we are given with their growth rate. First, stock A. Are we given the risk-free rate? Yes, 6.3%. You add what? Beta times market risk premium. Are we already given the market risk premium? Yes. Market risk premium is 6%. Multiply that with a beta of 1.1. That would be 6.6 plus the risk rate of 6.3. You will have 12.9. So if the required rate of return of stock A is 12.9 and we know that its growth rate is, how much is the growth rate of stock A, guys? Are they the same? 7%. So 12.9 minus 7 will give you 5.9. What is this 5.9? The dividend yield of stock A. Proceed to stock B. Let's first solve for the required rate of return for stock B. The risk-free rate again is 6.3%, and then the beta is 0.9 multiplied by the market risk premium of 6%. 6% times 0.9 is 5.4, am I correct? 5.4 plus 6.3 is 11.7. Minus the what is the 11.7 class? That is the required rate of return of stock B. Minus the CGY or the growth rate of 7%. Was it 11.7? 11.7 minus 7 will give you 4.7. So which one will have a higher dividend yield? It is stock A. But again, we have to check B and C. Stock A must have a higher stock price than stock B. Because if you're not even with the, what else is given? Which is expected to grow the concept. We can get our dividends because we're given the dividend yield, but the problem is we're not even with the price. We're not given with the price, so even though we have the dividend yield, we cannot get the dividends, the amount of dividends. So we really cannot determine the price. So we cannot determine the stock B's dividend yield equals its expected dividend growth rate. No, we already determined that the dividend yield was it 4.7 and then the growth rate is 7. So that means the answer number 21 is letter A. And more often than not, class, aside from this topic is not interesting, class. You would not want to learn this one, guy? This is not relatable, class. You cannot talk about this with your friends and find it amusing, class. You cannot even make a content out of this. Right now, many law students are becoming content creators because people are interested. But if you try to talk about finance, nobody would be interested. A day in a life of a finance student, nobody will be interested. Number 22. But class, you can be secretly proud of yourself if you understand this one, even though other people will not appreciate it, class. It takes something for you to get this, class. Unlike medical students, you'd be interested to know more about the value. Nobody is interested about dividend yield and growth rate. Are we 22? Declining growth rate. Stock expects to pay a year-end dividend of 2 per share. The dividend is expected to fall 5% a year forever. The company's expected and required rate of return is 15%. Which of the following statements is most correct? The company's stock price is 10. How do we get the stock price? Cash flow divided by discount rate. And how do we get the discount rate? The required rate of return minus the growth rate. Let's see if we can do that. How much is the cash flow? D1, are we given with D1? Yes, it's 2 divided by the discount rate. And our discount rate will be your required rate of return minus the growth rate. Are we given with the required rate of return? Yes, 15. Supposedly, you are going to deduct the growth rate. But since the growth rate is negative, you will end up adding the 5%. So the discount rate will now be 20%. So what do? Using your propensity formula, you divide 2 by 20%. And how much is 2 divided by 20? That's 10. So that means letter A is true. We will still have to check B and C. The company's expected dividend yield 5 years from now will be 20%. Uh, Basically, your discount rate will represent your dividend yield, so that would be 20%. Because remember, class, that your required rate of return is equal to dividend yield plus growth rate. So, if required rate of return is 15, and you know that you have a negative growth rate of 5, to balance the formula, your dividend yield must be 20. So A and B are true, so that means C must also be true. The company's stock price 5 years from now is expected to be 7.74. So one way of doing this is by getting the present value. We're getting the price 5 years from now, but since the growth rate is negative, we can just treat this as getting the present value. So you divide the price of 10 by 1.05 5 times. You multiply it by, not 1.05, multiply it by 0.955 times. You would get 7.74. So the answer again in number 22 is letter E. Because there will be no letter E's in the exam class, huh? Just telling you in advance. 23, if two constant growth stocks have the same required rate of return and the same price, which of the following statements is most correct? The same growth, the same required rate of return. What does this tell us? They will have the same dividend yield. Do they have the same growth? No. Sorry, it did not say they have the same growth class. It just says that both has constant growth. Sorry. Again, read the questions carefully. If two constant growth stocks, it did not say that they have the same growth rate. Okay, so which is correct. The two stocks have the same per share dividend. Are we given with the price? Yes. Do they have the same dividend yield? We do not know. So you cannot say that letter A is true. The two stocks have the same dividend yield. Again, I just said we cannot know. Letter C, the two stocks have the same dividend growth rate. Again, we cannot know. Letter D, that's why can we not know A, B, and C? Because normally required rate of return is equal to dividend yield and capital gains yield or your growth rate. We do not know the required rate of return. What we know is that they have the same. And we also do not know either the dividend yield or the growth rate. So we really cannot complete the formula. Okay, but letter D and E are now talking about hypotheticals. The stock with a higher dividend yield. So it has a higher dividend yield, but they have the same required rate of return. So he will have a lower dividend growth rate. So that means letter D is correct. Okay, higher dividend yield, but the same required rate of return. So the only logical conclusion there is the dividend growth rate will be lower for them to have the same required rate of return. So the answer for number 23 is letter D. '24 stocks. How many items are in this handout class? 100? 200? '24. Should I give you the answer? Okay. Letter this is just the same. Number 24 would be Charlie. 25, which is most correct. The answer here would be letter B, the dividend yield of the stock is equal to the expected return less the expected capital gains. 26, the expected rate of return on the common stock of the company is 14%. The stock's dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 8%. The stock currently sells for 50. Visual fact. The stock's dividend yield is 8%. 14 minus 8. So the dividend yield must be 6. So A and B are wrong. The current dividend per share is 4. If the dividend yield, how much is the dividend yield? 14 minus 8. So it should be 6. So what do you do? Multiply 6 by 50. So 6 times 50 will give you a dividend per share of, how much is that? 3? 3? So letter C is wrong. Stock price is expected to be 54 a share in 1 year. How much is the price now? 50. Growth rate is 8. 50 times 1.08, is that 54? Yes, so the answer is letter B. 27, now we're now in the problems. The Jones Company has decided to undertake a large project. Consequently, there is a need for additional funds. The financial manager plans to issue preferred stock with a perpetual annual dividend. So if it's preferred stock class, count it already as one of your check marks. Okay, it's very easy. It's just our perpetuity formula. Dividend divided by the rate. How much is the dividend here? Perpetual annual dividend. Since it's preferred stock, no growth, this would be 5 per share divided by the required rate of return of 20. 5 divided by 20% will give you 25. So the answer would be letter E. 28, I think it's just the same or not? Cost of preferred stock is 8%. That would be our discount rate. Par value, our ask for the market value. The par value of preferred stock is 120. And the stock has a stated dividend of 10% per year. So to get the dividend per year, it's 120 times 10%. That is 12. How much is 12 divided by 12 divided by 8%, guys? How much? 150. That's the answer. 29. A share of preferred stock pays quarterly dividend of 250. Plus if it pays quarterly, you just get the annual. So 2.5 times 4, that would be 10. And then we're given with the price of 50. So 10 divided by 50 will give you the rate of return of, how much is that? Is that 20%? That would be the answer. 30. A share of preferred stock pays dividend of 50 each quarter. So multiply that by 4, you will have 2. If you are willing to pay 20 for the preferred stock, what is your nominal rate of return? So annual dividend of 2 divided by 20 will give you 10%. 31. Assume that you plan to buy a share of XYZ stock today and to hold it for 2 years. Your expectations are that you will not receive a dividend at the end of year 1, but you will receive a dividend of 9.25 at the end of the year 2. In addition, you expect to sell the stock for 150. Again, going back to our guiding principle, because the price is just simply the present value of all the cash flows that you will get. Since you will only be holding it for 2 years, you will only have 2 cash flows, all on year 2. Because no cash flow will be received on year 1. How much is the total cash flows that will be received on year 2 class? The selling price of 150 and the dividend of 9.25 for a total cash flow of 159.25. You get the present value class using 16%, okay, discounted for 2 years, or you can simply divide it by 1.16 twice class. The answer here will be 118.35. Number 32, the company stock is currently trading at 25 per share. The stock's dividend is projected to increase at a constant rate of 7 per year. The required rate of return on the stock is 10%. What is the expected price of the stock 4 years from today? So just multiply it by the growth rate every year for 4 years. So How much is the growth rate? 7. So you multiply 25 by 1.07 4 times. Or you can use the future value factor. Regardless, you should arrive at 32.77. This is 32. What did I say? Uh, and what did I mention? Hmm, it's not in the handout. So maybe this will come up. So going back to Algen. And the same concept class, but instead of 4 years, it should be 8 years. Am I correct? Expected to pay a year and dividend of 4. What's asked here? Price. So the price now is ano? So 4, solve for the price now. 4 divided by normally the dividend yield. The dividend is expected to grow the constant rate of 8%, and the stock's required rate of return is 12. So the dividend yield would be 12 minus 8, which is 4. So $4 divided by 4% will give you how much? 4 divided by 4 will give you 4 divided by 4% will give you 100. Is that the answer? No. The 100 is the price today. What is being asked? The price 8 years from now. So what do? You multiply 100 by 1.08. How many times? 8 years. Or you solve for the future value factor of 1.08 raised to the power of 8 multiplied by 100. That should give you 185.09. Next, Waters. What is the expected price of the stock 7 years from now? I think the same concept. I'll just give you the answer. The answer there is letter A, 28. Trudeau, the same class. Answer here would be letter A, 48.67. Number 35. A stock is expected to pay a dividend of 50 at the end of the year. Its dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 7, and the stock has a required return of 12%. What is the expected price of the stock 4 years from now? So the price today would be pay a dividend at the end of the year. So this would be our D1. Plus, be careful with the given dividend kasi it might be the D0 or D1. What we need is D1. In this case, the 50 here is our D1. Okay, divided by 5%. Where did I get 5%? The difference between 12% required rate of return and the constant growth rate of 7%. How much is 50 cents divided by 5%? That will give you 10. But that is not yet the answer because we're looking for the price 4 years from today. Okay, and this is just the same. The answer would be letter E, 13.11. McKenna Motors, answer would be letter B, 6%. 37, a share of common stock. What is the price of the stock? I think this is very easy. Dividend of has just paid a dividend of 2 class. What does that mean? Is $2 our D0 or D1? D0, okay? So be careful. You need to determine D1 pa. And how much would be the D1? You multiply it with the growth rate. So 2 times 1.15 will give you your D1 or the expected dividend at the end of the year. So 2 times 1.15 will give you, is that 2.3? Divided by the difference between the required rate of return and the growth rate of 19 and 15. So you divide it by 4%. 2.3 divided by 4% will give you 57.5. So what's peculiar with number 37? The the dividend given. The problem is not yet your D1. Okay, be careful. Number 39, now we're using the CAPM class. Okay, but we're still looking for the price, but we're asked to use CAPM. The dividend is expected to grow at a rate of 6%. The risk-free rate is 5%, and the return in the market is 9%. Because is the 9% the market rate of return or the market risk premium? The market rate of return. So what we really need is the market risk premium. So we need to determine the market risk premium. If the market rate of return is 9% and the risk-free rate is 5%, that means the market risk premium is 4%. You add that with the risk-free rate gas of 5%. You multiply that with beta first. 4%, the market risk premium times the beta of 1.3. 4 times 1.3 is 5.2. Am I correct, class? 5.2 plus the risk rate of 5%. That means the required rate of return is 10.2%. What's the point of that one? It will help us determine the dividend yield. So 10.2 required rate of return minus the growth rate or the CGY of 6%. That means the dividend yield or the difference between the required rate of return and the growth rate is 4.2 to 4.2. You now divide the dividend. The 2.4 class, is that D0 or D1? D0 because this is the most recent. So what you have to do first, get D1. How do you get D1? Multiply 2.4 by 1 plus the growth rate of 6%. How much is 2.4 times 1.06? How much is 2.4 times 1.06? 2.544. 544. Then divide that by 4.2%. We should get 60.57%. All right. Albright. The answer for Albright would be letter C, 6%. What's asking? Let me just go over it quickly since it's a new kind of question. Expected to pay a dividend. So this means this is already our T1. The stock currently sells for 30. So if 30 is equal to 3 divided by X, that means X is equal to 3 divided by 30. How much is 3 divided by 30? That's 10%. What does the 10% represent? That represents the difference between the required rate of return and the growth rate. So if the required rate of return is 16, and we know that the difference between the required rate of return and the growth rate is, did I say 10? So 16 minus 10, that means the growth rate must be 6%. Next, number 40 is stock with the required rate of return. What's the question here? This time we're asked for D1. A stock, the required rate of return is 10, sells for 30. Okay, so that means required rate of return. Are we given with the growth rate? Yes. So 10 minus 7 is 3. That means 3 is our discount rate. So 30 is equal to X over 30. So that means X is equal to 3% times 10. How much is 3%? No, not 10, 30. 3% times 30 will give you 90. So the answer there would be delta. Because I hope I get some. Gettysburg. Five years from today. Are we given the price today? No, but can we get the price today? Yes. We're given with D1, 2 divided by 4. Where did I get 4%? The difference between 9% and 5%. How much is 2% divided by 4? You multiply by 25. That's 50. Am I correct? 2 divided by 4% plus, is that 50? Okay, and that is our price today. We're looking for the price 5 years from today. So 50 times 1.05 or 09 or 04? 05. So 5 times 1.05, do that 5 times. Your answer should be letter B, 63.81. Number 42, answer is this just the same question? Yeah. Answer for 42 would be 16.83 plus. Answer for number 43 is 9.52. Number 44, let's just discuss this one problem on non-constant growth. Let's have 44. The last dividend. So that means the $1 here is D0 or D1? D0 or D1? D0. Okay, this is not yet what we need. Klein's growth rate is expected to be constant 5% for 2 years, after which dividends are expected to grow at a rate of 10%. Meaning for some period, the growth rate was not constant. But again, what's the guiding principle here? Price is simply the present value of all its cash flow. Okay, so that means year 1, let's focus on year 3 first. What will happen in year 3? From year 3 onwards, the growth rate will now be constant. But before we proceed to year 3, we need the dividend for year 3. For us to know the dividend for year 3, we need the dividend for year 1 and year 2. So that means we really need to start with year 1. Let's start with year 1. How much is D0? 1. How much would be D1? If the growth rate in year 1 is 5%, that means the dividend on year 1 will be 1.05. And you get the present value of that 1.05. What rate are we going to use? We are going to use the required rate of return of 12%. We're not using the perpetuity formula itself because we're just dealing with a singular cash flow, which is the dividend for year 1. Next, so how much is the present value of the dividend on year 1? 1.05 divided by 1.12. Give me the figure. $1.05 divided by 1.12. That's 0.9375. Put that aside. Next, proceed to year 2. How much will be the dividend on year 2? Again, it will grow by 5%. So 1.05 D1 multiplied by 1.05 to get the dividend on year 2. That will give us a dividend of 1.1025. Am I correct? 1.1025. What do we do then? Get the present value of the 1.1025. Still using the 12%, but this time twice. So divided by 1.12 twice. That should give you 0.8789. Again, put that aside. Next, the cash flow on the dividend on year 3 will now be how much? The growth on year 3 will now be 10%. How much is 1.1025 times 1.1 plus? That would be 1.21275. That would be our dividend on year 3. Since we can now use the constant growth model, thus, what do we do? Divide 1.21275 divided by the dividend yield, which is 2%. Where did I get 2%? The required rate of return of 12 minus the growth rate of 10. So 1.21275 divided by 2% will give you 60.6375. But you have to be careful. When you're using the constant growth model, you're just getting the present value of the cash flows 1 year back. So the perpetual cash flow beginning on year 3 of 1.21275 its present value 1 year back, which is year 2, will be, how much was it, class? 60.6375. Since we are looking for year 0, you have to further get the present value of 60.6375. This is the problem with non-constant growth class. The process is long. So 60.6375 divided by 1.12 twice. Okay, we could actually have just did this together with the dividend on year 2. Okay, you will have 48.3398. You add that with the present value of the dividend in year 1 and year 2, you should get 50.16 class. The answer there would be 50.16. Next, answer for 45, the same flow lang class. Answer would be 67.47. Number 45 is 67.47. Number 46, Cartwright. It's a different kind of problem. Let's quickly go over it. Cartwright stock is currently selling for 40 a share. The stock is expected to pay to dividend. The stock's dividend is expected to grow at a constant rate of 7% a year. The risk-free rate. I think you discussed this already. Nothing to do with pricing. Answer here would be letter B. The beta would be B. Cartwright 46 is B 1.0. 47, Noprem. A new kind of problem. A firm whose shareholders don't possess the preemptive right. The firm currently has 1,000 shares of stock outstanding. The price is 100. The firm plans to issue an additional 1,000 shares at 90 per share. Since the shares will be offered to the public at large, what is the amount per share that all shareholders will lose if they are excluded from purchasing new shares? So the current class is 1,000 shares at 100. That will give you 100 plus 1,000 new shares at 90. So the total value of the new shares will be 90. So the value of the new firm with the increase will already be 190. But based on the market price, new market price class, total number of 190 divided by the 2,000 shares, the per share is 95 instead of the 100. So that means they will be losing 5 per share. Answer there will be Bravo. 49, 48, this is another way of solving for the value of the stocks class by getting the cash flows that will be generated by the company. And the analyst is trying to estimate the intrinsic value of the stock of the company. The analyst estimates that the company's free cash flow during the next year will be 25 million. The analyst also estimates that the company's free cash flow will increase at a constant rate of 7%, and the company's WACC is 10%. So we'll use the WACC as our discount rate. So what we have to do here is to divide our cash flow. Our periodic cash flow will be 25 million per year. 25 million divided by the WACC minus the growth rate of 7. So the discount rate that we will use would be 3%. How much is 25 million divided by 3% class? 833,000. So basically, we're saying the value of the company as a whole is 833 million. Okay? And since we know that there are 30 million shares outstanding, to get the price per share, we need to deduct the liabilities. Okay, the value of the company as a whole is 833. Out of the 833, 200 million will go to your creditors. So the value that will be left for your shareholders will just be 633. And that is the amount that will be shared by all the 30 million outstanding shares. So 633,353,353 divided by 30 million shares will give you a price of 21.11. So the answer number 49 will be 21.11. Number 49, the same concept class. Answer there would be 46.67. Number 50, CJ. I'll just give you the answer for CJ. Answer is letter E, delta. So tempting to discuss them, but I will just trust you. 51 is Bravo. 52, this is just constant growth class. Answer is delta, 60.15. Yohei is 59.87. 54, motorhomes, another example of a non-constant growth problem. You will just have one problem on non-constant growth in your exam. Letter A, 15.17. Number 55, another non-constant growth problem. Answer is D, 10.98. Number 56, Mac Industries. Another non-constant growth. Answer here would be Delta, 18.67. RE Lee, another non-constant growth problem. Answer is Alpha, 77.14. 58, another non-constant growth problem. Answer is Alpha, 69.31. Stewart, answer is letter E, 59.05. McPherson, still non-constant growth class. Maybe we'll just have two questions. Letter B, 40.41. 61, Hadlock. Answer is letter B, 54. Number 62, Rogers. Answer is letter E, 20.16. Number 63, White Cell. Answer is letter C, 69.56. 64, Garcia. Still on non-constant growth. I don't think non-constant growth will come out in the CMA. 95.42. Holmgren. Answer is Alpha, 84.8. 66, answer is Alpha, 28.58. 67, Carlson, it's letter C, 43%. 68, answer is Delta, 4.2. 69, let's answer 69. Connor Corporation's stock price of 32.55. The last dividend was 3.42. The long run growth rate for the company is a constant of 7%. So we need to get D1 first. So what we do, multiply 3.42 by 1.07. How much is 3.42 times 1.07? 3.6594. That would be our D1. If our price is 32.35, D1 is 3.6594. We're looking for our divisor. So what do we do? Transpose 3.6594 uh, divided by 32.35. How much is 3.6594 divided by 32.35? 11.31%. That's our basically our dividend yield, and we already know that our capital gains yield is simply our growth rate. So that means the answer here would be uh, letter E. Price earnings ratio class. What's the formula for price earnings ratio? I cannot forgive students who get the formula for price earnings ratio wrong, class, because the formula is simply its name. Price earnings is price over earnings, class. Okay, what's the question here? What price earnings ratio must the stock have 1 year from now so that investors realize their expected return? So, first, we need to get our price first. Are we given with the dividend, class? Just reported. So meaning if it just reported, that means uh, how much is the this is already our earnings, price earnings. But again, we're looking for the price. The earnings is 2. The stock has a price earnings ratio of 40. What does it mean? That out of your earnings, 40% stock has a price earnings ratio of, we're already given the price earnings ratio of 40 of 40. So the stock's current price is 80. Analysts expect that 1 year from now, the company will have an EPS, earnings per share of 2.4, and it will pay its first dividend of 1 per share. The stock has a required rate of return. What price earnings ratio must the stock have 1 year from now so that investors realize their expected return? So how much would be the price? Because we're given with our D1 already. Our D1 is 1. And then we're given with the old price of 80. How much is 1 divided by 80, class? Are we given with growth? Ah, the required return is 10. So if 1 over 80, class, how much is 1 over 80? How much is that? 1.25. That would be basically our dividend yield. So if the required rate of return is 10, and then the dividend yield is 1 point, how much is it? 1.25. That means our growth rate is, how much is our growth rate? 10 minus 1.25. 8.75. We multiply 80 then with 1.0875. It should be around 80 times 1 point. How much is it? 80 times 1.08. Was it per 125? Sorry, how much was the growth rate? Plus 1 point. Growth rate is 8.75 times 8. That would give us 87. That will now be our new price. Divided by the earnings of 2.4. Our price earnings ratio would be 36.25. Answer would be Bravo. Oh no. I'm at 0% already. It's not yet shutting down. See, that's right. See, I'll just give you the recording. I'll give the recording of it. I'll be away during the weekend with nothing to do. So I'll give you the recording. That's all for today. See you when. See you.